Today we will meet Sarah Sanderbrick, team lead social media at Zooplus. Sarah thinks that the internet was invented for pets. Since she joined Zooplus in the beginning of 2020, Sarah has known about the power that cat content can have. I have a cat at home and I totally agree with this. As team lead social media, she is responsible for social media and influencer relations in 25 markets at Zooplus. In this position, she oversees the development and implementation of the social media strategy for 25 countries, the establishment of influencer relations, and the development of an internal social media training center. Sarah, I can't wait to learn more about social media with you today. But before that, let's start with the beginning. Can you please briefly tell us about how your career started?
Yeah, sure. First of all, I'm very excited to be here, Maria, today. So thank you very much for inviting me. And yeah, of course, happy to talk about how it started. So basically, when I was still at uni, I had like I did a lot of internships and I had a lot of working student jobs. And in those jobs, it was like kind of slowly progressing that social media became a thing as like a proper job title, as a proper job, as a proper task. So I was very fortunate that in the very early stages in like 2011, 2012, etc., I was working in companies and agencies, basically all over Europe, different ones, different brands, different markets, different products. And I was fortunate enough to kind of like dive into social media for a bit back in the day. And I was like, oh yeah, that's kind of cool, right? It's like you can be super creative and at the same time, you can also be super strategic and analytical because you get to learn what your audience thinks like right away. In comparison to, let's say, when you're doing PR, there's always a gatekeeper in between. There's always that journalist that you have to cater to, and then that journalist will decide what he or she will deliver to the audience. So I was like, that's kind of cool. I think I want to do that. And then I finished uni, but then because my master's was actually international public relations, so I was kind of like on my track to becoming like a PR manager. And I had done that in my bachelor's, I had done it in my master's, I had done it in different internships as well. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go with PR for now because that's what I studied. So I started my first job as a PR assistant. And even in that job, I was like kind of always like kind of bound and drawn towards the social media part of it. And then I figured at some point, because my private life was also all about social media, I was the one like putting all our pictures from me and my friends on Facebook and on Instagram. And I was like, okay, maybe I can make this a career. And then I started in my very first full-time social media job in 2016. And yeah, that was kind of like the beginning of that career for me. So it really kind of progressed naturally from like having the first steps from learning about social media as an intern, working student, also being a heavy user myself, and then kind of progressed into that career that I have today.
That's great. Yeah, actually, if you like social media and if you are open to post pictures of you and of your friends on social media, I think this is really, really helpful because I've met people that, I don't know, social media managers at different brands, but they don't use social media for personal life.
Yeah,
in personal, those too. Yeah, I was asking, so where can people find you? Oh, actually, I'm not on social media.
Exactly. Honestly, though, to me, that's a bit weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because for me, like social media is my passion. And I'm like, obviously, I also like, when I'm with my friends, I'm with my friends and not on my phone. When I'm with my boyfriend, I'm with my boyfriend or with my family. Exactly. But also I'm like on my phone and then I'll like see the new trends and challenges on like TikTok and Instagram. And I just enjoy it so much. Also like as a private person, just me using it. And if someone's like, yeah, it's my job, but I don't really believe in it as like a private person, or when I'm at home, when I'm just me, then I'm just like, you serious that that's the right job for you? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think it's important to find a balance between these. So now you are the team lead social media at Zooplus.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what does your day-to-day schedule look like?
Yeah, that's the thing, right? I don't have like a typical day to day, and I love it. So I literally have like so many different tasks every day. But if I were to kind of like narrow it down a bit for you guys, then I would say what I like a big part of my day is also navigating with my team. And my team, and that's very interesting about Zooplus, is kind of like divided a bit in two parts because we have a central local organization structure at Zooplus. So we have a central team and then we have different local teams. So my, let's say, direct reports, my direct team is my central team. And I have two amazing colleagues, Olivia and Eva. And the three of us were working every day, let's say, on strategy, on concepts, on campaigns, both for social media, but also for influencers. We also work on reports so we can shout out and spread great news to the company, like what a great job we're doing in social media and how much we actually contribute to the company's success. And we also work on content pieces because we deliver an editorial plan to our local social media managers. So we have 30 content pieces per month, or content topics, content ideas every day, every month. And then we adapt those content pieces for Facebook, for Instagram, for Pinterest, and for Instagram stories. And this is what we also deliver to the locals. And we also work on trainings and guidelines for our local social media managers so that they basically have everything that they need for their day-to-day business. So this part I'm doing with my central team. So I'm catering to them and I'm checking in with them and see, are we on track with our to-dos? How are you guys feeling? Is everything okay? And then at the same time, I'm also catering to about 15 social media managers in the markets, and to make sure that they have everything that they need to get back to their questions, to loop them into campaigns, concepts, ideas, content, etc. So that is a big part of my day, to kind of like check in with both of those teams, to also check in like trends every day. I take a bit of time. I know it's hard as a social media manager. You're super busy. You probably have subscribed to a shitload of newsletters, but then days are super busy and you're not reading them because you're like, don't have time. Maybe at the end of the day, and then end of the day is like, yeah, sorry, don't have time, etc. So what I do is literally I take 10 minutes in the morning to go through my newsletters, because I feel like it's super important to kind of make sure that you're on track, that you develop yourself, that you know about the trends, new functionalities and features, etc. So that is like typical. Checking in with the team, reading my newsletters, trying to check if I'm on track with the trends. Then we also have an editorial meeting with all of our social media managers across Europe. And with that, we ask every social media manager to bring ideas to the table. So they're supposed to check their competitors. They're supposed to check their news. They're also supposed to check what we call social media unicorn brands. So the social media brands in your markets where you're like, ooh, they're doing a great job. We want to do the same. And then we basically get crazy. We get wild with the brainstorming and see what we can do about that with our Zooplus channel. So that's another big part. Then working on campaigns. We have lots of global campaigns every year. Basically 1 to 2 per month. So I'm covering those campaigns as well. And that ranges from creating content over to building the entire concept, copywriting, image sourcing, but also working with the team. So making sure it's adaptable for their markets. And then also training everyone on those campaign assets. And then I'm also doing a bit of reporting on the side as well to make sure that I have numbers at hand every time my director asks me. And I'm like, yeah, look at that reach. It's great. So yeah, that is basically my day. It's a wild mix of like different topics, lots of meetings, if I'm quite honest. But I always try to balance it out with like strategic work and also a bit of creative work, because I myself, I love copywriting. I love telling stories. So I try to squeeze that in every single day when I'm at work.
Great. So basically, you just confirmed me that being a social media manager means wearing a lot of hats.
Yes, 100%. 100,000%, definitely. Yeah.
Meetings, content creation,
Yeah.
reporting, a lot of things.
Yeah.
Great. So I'm sure that a lot of people who are listening are wondering, okay, so what skills do I need to develop to become a social media manager? Where should I start?
Yeah, I would like to say harness your creativity, and just like embrace your curiosity as well. You can do that by, let's say, checking other brands, by checking campaigns, and by kind of like improving your copywriting skills. There are 1,000 like sessions and webinars out there. So I would say to kind of like develop your creativity, not not just like brainstorming skills to come up with ideas, but also to make sure to kind of like break those ideas in and make them suitable for A, social media, and B, your target audience. Then I would say another skill that is highly important is like a strategic and analytical mindset, because I know back in the day it was kind of like, yeah, let's just throw some posts on Facebook and then it'll get a lot of reach. But these days are over. So we need to have like a way more strategic and analytical mindset. So we need to learn how to report properly, how to analyze properly the content that we are distributing, that we're publishing. Because on social media, to me, is like, I think, one of the most user-centric channels that is out there. And if you're not user-centric, you're doomed to fail on social media, because you have to cater to your audience's needs. You have to cater to their use case, why they are on social media. And to be able to do that, you need like an analytical mindset to find out about your audience, to find out what kind of content pieces they really liked, to be able to create more of that. And then also to have that like strategic mindset and kind of like combining all of that together, to kind of like combine the branding, the positioning, the messaging, etc., and combine that with the audience needs, and at the same time make all of that suitable for social media. So you have to have like a very strategic mindset as well. Then I would say dedication. Maria, you already said it. Social media manager is wearing a lot of hats. So there's like, you need dedication. You need to be dedicated to social media. And I would also say kind of like passionate about it in some way. And also have like a tiny bit of thick skin. And I know it's not like rainbows and unicorns and lots of glitter and confetti. It is most of the time, because with other social media managers, life is basically great. But there's also like probably in your company setting that people are not really understanding what social media is for. And other people are potentially like consistently sharing their opinion with you, even though they have no experience in social media whatsoever. I don't know, maybe they work in accounting or tax team, or I don't know. And then they'd be like, hey, I just saw that on social media. I think we should do that as well. Or they'd be like, hey, what you did the other day on social media, I don't really think that this was great. Because that's just how social media is. It's so easy accessible that everyone has an opinion. So I just recommend you kind of like have a bit of that thick skin. That doesn't mean that you can't appreciate that other people approach you and be like, hey, I have an idea. Maybe that idea is brilliant. But don't take it like too personal if people consistently share their opinion with you, even though you didn't ask. And lastly, another skill that I think is important for being a social media manager is that mindset of test and fail. Social media is so fast and things change so quickly. I think you need to kind of like have an attitude towards that you just like, Facebook Business Manager looks new like every other day, like every 2 weeks. You're like, okay, what's happening here? Why does that look different? Or where's that functionality that I used to like work with? Where's that now? And why is this called differently? So you need to be kind of like flexible, and you need to have like an open mind to kind of like testing things, and just also allowing yourself to fail. because social media is also a bit of trial and error. And like one day that posting is surprising you and you're like, oh, I didn't expect that performance. And the other day is like, why didn't that work? That was like the exact same strategy that we had last week, but this week it's not working. What's happening? So just like stay open a bit, and it's test and fail. And at the end of the day, you're doing a great job.
Love this answer. So, as you said, today there are a lot of social media platforms. There's Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I don't know, you can create reels or post carousels. How would you describe social media today?
Well, for me, social media today is like, it's kind of like very different to when I first started. Like focus back in the day was like Facebook. I was like, yeah, let's get on Facebook. And these days you have that variety of different channels, as you just said, and you're like, damn it, okay, what next? Okay, I need to jump on TikTok as well. And like social media manager across the world are just like simply crying, and also simply crying every time when Adam Razira posts a new update on the Instagram algorithm. Everyone's like, oh my God, what's happening? Like, yeah, exactly. So I think social media has gone from this like tiny little area, tiny little space, that bit of like geek buzzy thing, to that big part of strategic communications. Social media has grown so much. It has become more and more professional. There's a lot of variety of different like topics, you know. Back in the day, I mean, it's still the case in like startup or smaller companies, but back in the day, there was like one social media person, maybe on the side also doing a bit of PR, and then doing it all, like copywriting, community management, influencers, also photo shootings, at the same time video shootings, at the same time reporting, at the same time paid social. And now there are, in some companies, there are dedicated teams to each and every area, kind of like the content team, the community managers, the paid social team, etc. So it's blown up like so big. And then there are all these like different channels. So I think it's become more diversified, I think. But at the same time, I feel like the core of it is still there. Social media is still about community. It's still about great content. It's still about targeting that content at the right audience. It's still about kind of like being social. We see that a lot with our community, because our community, obviously it's potentially a bit easier with us than with other companies, but we see a lot that our audience loves to share their pets. We ask them like, show us how your furry friend looked this morning, and boom, we have like 80 cats and 90 dogs posted in the comment section under this post. But what I've seen, especially also during the pandemic, there was still an urge to kind of like be in touch with each other, to have like a community that you feel connected to. And social media can deliver exactly that. So while social media as a communications area is becoming more and more professional, I still feel it's the same in the sense that it's about community, it's about emotion, it's about content that is relevant to people. So yeah, that's my take on social media these days.
Yeah, I love this. So it's about content that's relevant to people. Because my next question is, I think one of the biggest struggles for social media managers is to create engaging content. Mm-hmm. So what do you think are the key elements to creating social media engagement these days?
I think first and foremost, it's important that you know your audience. You have to understand what their reality of life is. Like, what are their needs? What is the situation that they live in right now? What is their use case? And I keep telling that to lots and lots and lots of people on my team. Every time when they're like, oh man, that didn't work, I was like, did you think about your target audience? Did you think about their reality of life? Did you think about why exactly they are on social media? So that's number one for engaging content. You have to understand your audience. You have to put yourself in their shoes. Number two, I think what is important is to kind of, as you said earlier, to offer relevance, to offer a benefit. That comes obviously with understanding their reality of life, but you have to offer them something. What benefit do they get from reading your content, from watching your video, from engaging with your content? So be very precise about why exactly this is relevant. Why is that a benefit to them? Then number 3 is your copywriting skills. I see lots and lots of different copies on social media. And you have to kind of also tie that in with your tone of voice of your brand, but also kind of like find a way to twist and tweak that brand tone of voice and make it into something that sounds appealing to your audience. Right? Is it more cheeky? Is it very witty? Or is it more very like emotional? Is it like super cheesy? Or is it kind of like very professional? Is it a bit dry? Is it maybe potentially dark humor? Try to understand how you can match your brand's tone of voice with the sound that sounds the most appealing to your audience. For Zooplus, for instance, it is the cheesier, the better. 100%. The cheesier, the better. So try to kind of like find that out and then put that in your copywriting. And then when it comes to copywriting, also kind of be concise, be precise, and have like a very let's say visual story copywriting in a way that you tell a story, that you tell them about a situation or a scenario that they can actually feel, that they can put themselves into. Because then the more they understand and the more they have like an image in front of their eyes, not just the one that you're posting, but by reading your story, by reading your copy, the more chances are that they're actually reacting to your content. And a very simple trick is to ask them a question, to kind of like ask them and trigger them to put something in the comments. So we at Zooplus, we do it quite simple. We're like, how's your cat doing? Put them in the comments. Or show us your sleeping beauty. How did your pet look this morning? Something like that. And this works. It works. It just works because people like to share their stuff on social media. And lastly, and this is especially for, let's say, images or videos that you create on social, do a test and see if you and people on your team have an emotional reaction towards that image or towards that video. And that it has to be like an instant initial reaction, an instant emotional reaction. Either it can be joy, it can be a bit of anger as well, it can be happiness, it can be sadness. All of those are valid, but there has to be some reaction towards it. And if that is not the case, don't use that image. Don't use that video. This is what we do with every single content piece on our social channels. We do that test. And if we see there's an emotional reaction, we're using it. If there's no initial emotional reaction, we're not. Because at the end of the day, we're still humans and we live on emotions. We can't there's nothing we can change. That's just like happening automatically. So we can use that for our social media communications as well. And the bigger the emotional reaction we're triggering, the higher the likelihood, the more chances we get that they actually engage with our content. So these will be my tips and tricks for engagement.
Great. And I think you mentioned this before, but I also think it's important that if a piece of content is bringing you a lot of engagement on Instagram, let's say, on Twitter, it might not be the case. So it's really important to create content according to the platform that you want to use.
Yeah. 100%.
Great advice. Now let's talk about campaigns, because you said you are creating a lot of campaigns at Zooplus.
Yeah.
Can you tell me the steps behind building a successful social media campaign?
Sure. Yeah. So last year, we're currently building a new one. We have lots of, maybe I need to differentiate that bit. So we have a lot of global campaigns. These campaigns come from our campaign management team, and these are literally for the entire company. They're very sales driven, and we adapt them for social media. So we basically the storytelling is set by the campaigns team, and we try to twist and tweak it a bit for our social channels. And at the same time, we also have social media campaigns. And last year, we did our first ever social media campaign. We also won 2 awards with that campaign. So we're very, very proud of this campaign. This year, we're also working on another social media only or social media first campaign. So what did we do last year? So, or also this year, we always first start with like a very, very, very broad brainstorming, right? And we try to encourage all of our social media managers to just put everything out there. There's no idea that is crazy. Every idea is welcome. So literally have like this wild and crazy brainstorming, get that creativity and that energy flowing. And then from there, we pick a couple of ideas that we feel we have, again, the strongest emotional reaction towards. Because when we have an emotional reaction towards something, we feel like, okay, there might be a good story that could be relevant for a lot of people and could be relevant to our audience and community. And then when we have those 2 to 3 ideas, what we do is we start by defining the goals. What are our goals? Is it branding? Is it community building? Is it conversions, etc.? Is it traffic? Then we start building the KPIs. And we do that for every single campaign, even if we don't know if we can go through with those. And why we do that is because we need to kind of have all that information to see if there's, how would you say that in English, potentially enough flesh to the bone. Not sure. If there's enough, let's say, substance to it to make this a successful campaign. So we do the goals, we do the KPIs, we do analyze or work on how many products can we squeeze in. Is there like also a part of salesy storytelling that is a good potential? We also plan out or map out the timing, how many weeks or even months we want to run that campaign, how many assets do we potentially need, and then also what budget would need to be involved. And we do that for all the campaigns, and then we see what we get, and then we pitch it again to see if there's again that good reaction towards that campaign. And then we start working on a very, very specific concept, a very, very specific storytelling before we even think about creating that content. We approach it from, let's say, a very strategic, initially we start with lots of creativity, and then we put it into that framework. We put it into KPIs, goals, target audience, channels, etc., to see if it would work, if there's enough substance. So a very strategic and analytical approach. And then once that is done, and it's kind of basically through that funnel, and then we get creative again. And then it's all about creating those stories and envisioning those different posts and stories and images and scenes, etc. And that has proven to be quite successful.
Great. And my last question for you is, if you could teach me 3 things about social media, what would you teach me?
So I would teach you copywriting skills. That's one of my favorite topics, copywriting skills. I would teach you definitely reporting skills, because I feel like this is getting more and more important. And I see that with a lot of people. They're great with copywriting and great with shooting images or videos, and then they're kind of yeah, but I don't know about reporting though. And I'm but we need that. We need to because reporting is essential to be able to prove to the company that you're working in what what great job you're doing. Because otherwise everyone's okay, great. Content looks fun. Yeah, thank you. But if you can prove to them, I have reached 60 million people this year, and I don't know, 25 million engaged with my content. That's a whole nother story. That is like numbers, and that is like a story that senior management types understand. That is like a story that board members understand. So I would teach you definitely reporting to kind of like balance that creativity with that analytical approach. And lastly, to be a successful social media manager, I would teach you to hang on. Let me see, what else would I teach? I would teach you that how to create tests and hypotheses, because I think that is also necessary, that whenever you test something and when you try something new, which is important on social media, that you also at the same time understand how to derive results from it and how to derive learnings from it. So that would be my skills that I would teach you. So based on creativity and based on strategy and analysis.
Great. These are great. Sarah, thank you so much for your time and for sharing all these informations with us. It was great having you, and I took a lot of notes here while you were talking. It was a really pleasure having you here.
Thank you so much. That was fun. I enjoyed it very much. And yeah, I hope that everyone listening to that podcast could take away a lot of learnings, and we can make social media a bit more fun even. So thank you a lot for the invite. It has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much.